Hi guys, my name is Louise McCartney. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach, and I've got a 30-year background in nursing, predominantly in the areas of child health and midwifery, and as a lactation consultant. And I just want to thank you, Bianca, for inviting me back again today. I think it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, we were just trying to work that out, weren't we?
Yeah.
I think it's about 5 years now.
I think it is, yeah. So I was rapt when I got your message to actually come back. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. All right, we'll jump on. "19 minutes past 4. Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon. We've got Louise McCartney joining. Welcome.
Hi Bianca, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for coming in this afternoon and talking with us about all things health and wellness and gut health mainly. I mean, we were just saying, you've been interested in this topic for quite some time. So how did you get involved in this topic?
Well, it's actually been nearly 20 years because it was back in about 2004. Very sadly, I lost 3 friends to cancer. And at that time, I was raising a lot of money for the cancer charities, and my belief was that, if we raise the money, we'll find the cure, and then we can all kind of, live a good life. And then I went to hear a guy called Philip Day speak. And what Philip Day said was that at the turn of last century, 1 in 1,000 people were diagnosed with cancer. In the 1950s, 1 in 50. Today, 1 in 2. And he said, if we don't change what we're doing, potentially our children would have cancer at least once in their lifetime. So that was a real turning point for me, because my shift was that it's not about raising money to find the cure. It's about what is the underlying cause of this disease, And so at that time, I was working at Child and Youth Health, and within the clinic, we were all very experienced child health nurses. I had a child with allergies, with asthma, hay fever. There was another of the nurses had a child with ADHD. Another, my nursing friend, had a child with diabetes. Another had a child with anaphylaxis. And we all had these children with these significant health issues. Now, that was what really led me to go and do research, because it just wasn't adding up, because the war on cancer had been declared about 40 years ago. And in that time, I think about 378 million is actually raised for cancer research. So I multiplied that times 40, and that's a huge amount of money. And we've now got 1 in 2 cancer statistics. So I wanted to know what is the underlying cause, not only of cancer, but of the huge increase in diseases. And what I found was that it all linked back to the gut. Yeah. So 80% of our immune system is in the gut, and it's actually our immune system that will protect us. So that's really where I decided to invest my own learning. I'll just read out some statistics to you here, because my passion is actually around child and youth health. Now, these statistics are about 10 years old. So 1 in 5 Australian children have got food allergies. 1 in 6 Australian children have learning behaviour or immune disorder. 1 in 20 are diagnosed with autism. I think that's now 1 in 80 now. And ADHD is the most common psychiatric disorder in youth, in school-aged children in Australia and New Zealand. So it really, all of these conditions came back to the gut, to the immune system. And the thing is, your body is a complex ecosystem, and it's made up of more than 100 trillion microbes. And these 80% of these microbes are actually in our gut. So it's like a rainforest almost. But we actually have a microbiome on our skin. We have it in our birth canal. We have it in our nasal passages, in our mouth, in our ears. So we're kind of walking, talking microbes. And I had come from, I guess, a healthcare system that was focused on managing symptoms, or focused on managing symptoms. I wanted to look at addressing the underlying cause of disease. So the other thing that I actually found out was that about 80%, so 80% of our microbiome is in our gut, but also 80% of serotonin, which is like the neurotransmitter, it's like a happy hormone, is actually manufactured in the gut as well.
Is that right?
So this made sense why there is a very strong gut-brain connection. So our gut and our brain are actually connected via what's called a vagus nerve. And then it began to make sense to me why we used to see people with maybe Crohn's that had depression, or ulcerative colitis that had maybe bipolar, or there was a very, very strong connection between the gut and the brain. But also the gut and the skin, the gut and your hormones, the gut, it's really everything. And it begins to make sense, because if you consider that 80% of our healthy flora it should be in the gut, and about 20% should be things like candida and yeast. But what feeds those, the candida and the yeast, is things like antibiotics, the hormone contraceptive pill, soft drinks, processed food, stress, radiation, pharmaceutical drugs. So over time, what's happening is that we're killing off the good flora and we're feeding the unhealthy flora, and that unhealthy flora begins to morph, and it kind of burrs little holes through the gut wall, allowing proteins and undigested proteins and toxins to get into our blood. So the immune system doesn't recognize those and starts to attack those undigested proteins and creates antibodies. And those antibodies create what's called autoimmune disease. So they might actually, if they attack the joints, it might be rheumatoid arthritis. It might be, if they attack the pancreas, it might be diabetes, So what we found now is that this condition, leaky gut, is actually the underlying cause of so many diseases that we're actually suffering from today. So that was kind of the origin of my journey in the gut. And I started doing gut health seminars about 14 years ago. Mm-hmm. And people used to look at me, it's like, well, how can the gut be connected to the brain and the skin? But I think now it's actually become common knowledge, which is wonderful. And even mainstream medicine is actually looking at the effects, on the gut.
And people are more aware now, aren't they, of
they
what they eat and what they consume. And I think, a lot of people are on probiotics and eating yogurt and taking supplements. So that's great that the awareness is out there.
And actually, sorry to interrupt you, but just I think this is really, really key. So one course of antibiotics increases our risk of depression during the following 12 months by 17%. 2 courses increases our risk of depression by 44%. Now, that's a statistic by the New England Medical Journal of 2013. A lot of our children have had 12 courses of antibiotics by the time they're 1. And a child's immune system is not fully developed until they are 3. So it started to make sense why we have this epidemic of immune-related disorders, which was all linking to the gut and also to our diet and,
That's a high number. That seems like a lot, doesn't it?
It's very, very high. But it started to make sense to me why we were beginning. The thing is that when you've actually been in a career as long as me, so I guess I've actually been interested in health and wellness for 41 years. It's a long time. And I've worked in many areas of allopathic health, but also many areas of natural health. And what I remember whenever I was actually a home visiting midwife, we rarely saw things like cradle cap or paronychia, which is like a fungal infection of a baby's nails, nappy rash, conjunctivitis, mastitis, postnatal depression. And yet whenever I was leaving, so I actually left my nursing career 10 years ago, when I was leaving, it was almost like every mother or child had some kind of health condition in that 6 weeks that we were visiting. And again, this is where I went and did my own research. And what I found was that the birthing process is so important. So if you go back, say, 100 years ago, when our grandparents actually gave birth, they weren't exposed to antibiotics or hormone contraceptive pill or processed food or many of the things that we are today. So the flora in their birth canal was really healthy. Now, when a woman goes into labor, the cervix opens up, and that healthy flora finds its way into the uterus, into the amniotic fluid, and the baby's swallowing this. So the mother is inoculating her baby even before the baby's born. Then the baby's coming down through the birth canal. The average labor is about 13 hours, and all babies are born with leaky gut. So they go straight to the breast. Those immunoglobulins in the colostrum then goes all around the baby's body, and then the breast milk shuts down the gut wall, and the high sugar breast milk starts to feed the flora in the baby's gut and creates the immune system.
Amazing, isn't it?
I love it, but now what's happening, Bianca, is that most women, as a result of the high amount of antibiotics and all the other things, most women have got unhealthy flora. And so this unhealthy flora is in the amniotic fluid, the baby's swallowing it, taking in more of it through the birth canal, so our babies are actually being born with this overload of unhealthy flora. And this was why I think that we were seeing as midwives this high increase in, things like cradle cap and conjunctivitis and nappy rash.
And what other conditions can that lead to?
Well, what I love to do is I love to actually join the dots. So often if somebody comes in and they might say, look, I've got fibromyalgia, and so I do a health history. It's a very comprehensive health history, and it goes right back to how they were born, how they were fed, were they bottle fed or were they artificially fed. Now the beauty is were the bottle fed or breastfed, the beauty with breast milk is breast milk's got lactobacillus and bifidobacteria, which are the two bacteria that are so fundamental to creating the baby's immune system. Formula doesn't have that, okay? And so
they can't put it in as a supplement?
No.
Like the good bacteria?
Well, the thing
Probiotics?
with breast milk, and you know, big part of what the problem in the world is interference. The thing with breast milk is that a mother's breast milk is perfect for her baby at 1 day, at a week, at a month, at 6 months. You can't replicate that. You can't replicate that in any kind of formula, all right? And so I ask, where was your mum when she was pregnant with you? Were you breastfed? Were you bottle fed? Did you have ear infections or tonsillitis or chest infections? And that's often indicative of an allergy to maybe cow's milk. So it could be cow's milk in a breastfed mum, or it could be cow's milk in formula. And then we actually go through joining the dots. So were you on antibiotics? Quite often they've got a history of antibiotics at a very young age. That might lead to steroid use, maybe for asthma or allergies or whatever it is. And then they may find that they actually had sugar cravings and processed diet, and then they go into their adult years and binge drinking and you know, on the contraceptive pill. But then we start joining the dots, and so at 18 they might have something like chronic fatigue, or they might have fibromyalgia or depression or something like that, but it's not something that happens overnight. It could be something that's actually, those very first signs could have been as a baby.
It's interesting that you say perhaps the cow's milk could create some allergy for people.
So I'm an O blood type, okay, and this was kind of my original story with my son, if you remember. So my belief was, I was actually brought up in Africa, and my belief was, we travelled around the world a lot as family, and I'd always researched a lot of cultures. Intuitively, I felt that a child breastfeeds and then goes on to food and water. I guess our culture is that we feed cow's milk, and cow's milk to some blood types is actually an allergen, and especially to O blood types. So what I've found is that, many blood types, but specifically O. And what I found in my own family was that, I then started second guessing myself, because people would say, well, you know, what if your kids kind of, you know, they get osteoporosis, or they have kind of, you know, calcium problems or whatever. And so I actually started to introduce dairy. Now what that showed up as was asthma, hay fever, and a variety of other different things. I didn't know that. And with the hat that I was wearing at the time, all I knew was antibiotics or surgery. And it was only after that that I started joining the dots and realised what changed was I introduced dairy. Now, I'm all about prevention, and I wish somebody had said to me back then, maybe try and eliminate dairy from their diet as opposed to give antibiotics. And I guess that's really what I'm about. So I left my nursing career 10 years ago. I decided to become a health coach, and I'm still very passionate about child and youth health, about family health, but I teach more around preventative health and a holistic, you know, way of actually managing symptoms.
And what sort of things can people do to improve their gut health? And if they've got leaky gut, what can they do?
Well, the very first thing that I would teach people is around diet, all right? So my philosophy is in any form of healing. And this is where I've actually tried to simplify health and wellness a bit, because I'm so analytical that I've spent the last really 25, nearly 30 years researching, but really I've done this full circle and found out that it's really not that complex, okay? So the first step is to remove what's causing the problem, doesn't matter what the disease is, and then give the body what it needs to heal itself. So the body is a self-healing mechanism. It's incredibly sophisticated, and I wonder if we'll ever fully understand it. But if we know to be able to give the body the raw material, it does the rest, all right? And you watch the magic happen. So when it actually comes to healing the gut, I am a huge fan of a high plant-based organic way of eating. I don't even like calling it a diet, so it's a way of eating. When my kids were very, very little, so I'm looking at 25 years ago, I made a decision to stop shopping in the supermarket altogether, because there was nothing in there that I felt that was going to nourish their body. And I made a decision to only buy from organic farmers. So I've done that for 25 years. You'll find me every Sunday at the farmers market. And my philosophy is that we aim to eat about 15 rainbow vegetables, organic vegetables a day, a small amount of animal protein. 15. It's actually not
vegetables.
Yep. It's actually
not fruit and veg. To split it up.
Vegetables. Yeah,
that's a lot.
Small amount of protein, and it doesn't necessarily have to be animal protein. Being a no blood type, we do have a small amount of quality, ethical, grass-fed or free-range animal protein in our diet, and of course your omegas and your good quality fats. How I incorporate 15 vegetables into my day would be, I would have maybe 4 or 5 in a green smoothie, or maybe with eggs and greens, and then I actually have a concentrated green powder, and that's got 27 in it, but I don't count those 27. Then lunch will be a nice big rainbow salad, maybe a little bit of fish, or maybe just that on its own, and then dinner might be a big stir fry. So I actually find it quite easy to incorporate. But the other philosophy I have is that 80% of every plate is plant-based. So diet is a big thing. So we really want to get out of the supermarket. We want to support our local organic farmers, and we want to go. The thing is, we've seen many trends along the way, and there's some amazing trends. We've seen paleo and keto and vegan and vegetarian, whatever. The world agrees we need to eat more plants, all right? And every culture agrees that we need to eat more plants. So I'm, probably 30 years high plant-based. The other thing to heal the gut, so obviously removing the things that cause a problem. So sugar, dairy, gluten, processed foods, it's not, it's an 80% approach, all right? Because some people think, I'm going to feel so deprived. We are not into deprivation. We're into crowding out and teaching you how to add in something that's going to heal your body, and you're going to grow to love even more. And after a while, you don't even notice the things that you've crowded out. And the side effects of this lifestyle is that you've got endless energy, you sleep better, your hormones are balanced, you're happy, you're more optimistic. We don't focus on weight loss, because a side effect of eating like this is that your body finds its natural weight. So there's lots of great side effects. We also teach people to eliminate the avoidable toxins, and we can talk about that in a bit. And then over and above that, what we need to heal the gut is things like probiotics. Colloidal minerals, absolutely crucial. I think it is the biggest missing link.
That?
Colloidal minerals. Biggest missing link in all health programs today. And I started learning about colloidal minerals about 20 years ago. Now here's the thing, is that the body can actually make most nutrients, but it can't make minerals, and it can't make vitamin C. And we need to get minerals from the soil, and if they're not in the soil, then we become deficient. So we need about 70 to 80 minerals every single day. Research shows that we're maybe getting 15 to 30. So if you were to research one mineral, say magnesium, you will find that each mineral deficiency has about 15 to 20 different health issues associated with it. So for $1 a day, what I will do for the rest of my life is actually supplement my diet with colloidal minerals. The other thing, even though I eat a high plant-based diet, I still recommend just a very good multivitamin with an antioxidant, and then probiotics with that. So the probiotics that I recommend are actually a pre and probiotics. That's about 50 times stronger than most probiotics that you'll find in the shops. And then the only other thing is something like colostrum or L-glutamine or collagen to be able to heal the gut. So what we want to do is shut down the gut wall, re-inoculate the gut, cleanse the blood, detox the liver, and then allow the body to heal itself.
Sounds good. We're all in search of that,
yes.
Good health, and keeping our gut healthy. And like the Greek philosopher said many years ago, I've mentioned this before on the show, that healthy gut, healthy brain.
That's
a
right.
lot of mental illness.
That's right.
Sort of started in the gut. The Greek philosopher said many years ago.
450 BC, I think it was. So this is not new information. Hippocrates.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so it's not new information by any stretch. It's just that we're finding this all out again. And the thing is that it makes sense. It makes sense. So, and it's not to say, look, antibiotics are amazing. They are life-saving. But we want to be able to save them for when we really need them, because we've got a real problem with antibiotic resistance. And what that means is that if you are resistant to antibiotics, when you really need them, they won't work.
Mm-hmm.
So as a family, we choose probiotics. I actually haven't been to a doctor for nearly 20 years. And it's not that I'm stubborn and I don't go. And I'm a very big fan of allopathic medicine. I think it's fantastic. But I actually have a medicine chest at home with very powerful herbal supplements. And the key with natural health is that if you get like a sore throat or a cough or you're just feeling unwell, is that you boost your immune system straight away and you allow your body to deal with it rather than waiting for a while and then feeling like you're beyond natural health.
Get on it before we get the cold. Have the vitamin C, have the chamomile tea with honey and lemon before we get sick, not when we get sick. Yeah. Things like that.
So it's all about empowering people to get back into the driver's seat of their health rather than feeling disempowered. And I think we do live in a society where it very much around fundraising to find the cure, raise awareness or whatever it is. And I think we're all aware. I would suggest that every single one of us has probably lost somebody prematurely to some form of disease. So we are aware what we really need now is we actually need funding to go into prevention.
Absolutely. So tell us about this, the retreat in Malaga.
Okay, so what happened is at the beginning of COVID, I was actually meant to go back to Ireland. So I'm originally from Ireland. And on the day, obviously I couldn't go back. So on the day that I would have arrived in Ireland, my stepfather passed away. And he was an incredible man. He was in his 90s. And it was very, very sad. I couldn't be there for the funeral. It was actually on my birthday. I woke up, my stepsister phoned me, and so, and she said, Dad's just passed away. So 3 weeks later, I got another message just saying that my brother in France had passed away. Now, that I was still reeling from the death of my stepfather. My brother he was diagnosed with cancer about 10 years ago, but I actually didn't even know that his health had gone down. So he was the very last of my family. So that basically meant that I had no family left. I had no parents, no grandparents, no siblings, no aunts, no uncles, no cousins. Both my parents were only children, so I didn't actually have aunts or uncles anyway. But that was the stark realization that I actually didn't have any family left. And that, I'm a very strong person. I'm very optimistic, and I've had a lot of knocks in my life, like many people have. But I always come back up again. And I actually found with COVID and a lot of things that really hit me. So what I did was I felt that I needed to throw myself into some kind of project or something that was actually going to make a difference. And what I did was, I'm not sure if any of the listeners here have heard of the Landmark Forum, but I had done the Landmark Forum about 20 years ago, and it was actually my best friend that had put a $100 deposit down for me to do that personal growth weekend. That personal growth weekend changed my life. And I know it sounds corny, but I could really, I could share. We don't have a lot of time, but it changed my life. I then went on and did the Advanced Forum, and the final part of the curriculum of the Landmark Forum is called Self-Expression and Leadership Program. Now, some of the projects that have come out of that are You OK Day for mental health, KESAB, Keep South Australia Beautiful. So I felt my girlfriend that had actually paid that deposit, she passed away 4 years ago from leukemia. And I felt that I needed now to actually go and finish the final curriculum of the Landmark Forum and create a project that would make a difference in other people's lives around prevention. And the project I created is called Every Little Difference, because every little difference makes a difference. And what I found was that after 40 years of working with people, that most people know how to be well, but they struggle to apply the principles of wellness. It's like they need accountability. True. And rather than throwing everything and saying, you've got to cut dairy, gluten, sugar out or whatever, and they just glaze over, which we all would, I felt like we've really got to take a slow approach and take people by the hand and teach them all the simple little disciplines of this. So I guess it started off, the project started off a case for action. My case for action was that 1 in 2 Australian men men and women will be diagnosed with cancer by the age of 85. 1 in every 4 couples in developing countries have been found to be affected by infertility. We know there's not one cure of disease, and there's not one cause. We know that diet and lifestyle account for 95% of disease. Also stress, environmental toxins. Yeah. So taking that into account, I wanted to be able to create a one-day retreat, all in one day, that I could share with people what I'd learned over the last 40 years. And by just teaching simple little daily disciplines, and even if it meant that they just left that retreat and they were drinking more water, but then they apply something, they start eating more plants, or they start eliminating environmental chemicals from their home, or they start reducing their exposure to electromagnetic radiation. And so after, with COVID, I really felt that our health has to be our priority. And if it wasn't a priority for people before COVID, I was hoping that they would actually understand that our immune system is really what's going to protect us, and that we really need to have our health as one of our highest values. So with the retreat, I then decided, at one stage during COVID, they shut down the farmers market. Now, I used to grow all my own food, but because I was travelling a lot, and since I've seen you, I'd been to all the blue zones, and I'll share a little bit about that if we've got time. But I was travelling a lot, and so I decided that I wasn't going to grow so many of my own vegetables, and I was just going to go to the farmers market, which I did. During COVID, the market was shut down. And that was the stark realisation that we can't have our food controlled like that. So I had to go back and start growing my own food. And so at the retreat, what's really, really important is that we start off with goals and really getting people to think about what they want about their health. Then I've actually got Roger Carthew, who's head of permaculture of Australia, and he comes out and he does a session on teaching people how to grow food. Now, for people who don't want to grow food, he will then come in. He's got a business called Vital Veggies. He will come in and he will actually create raised garden beds and a permaculture garden for them. Then we have a session on foraging and how to forage wild edibles, which again is something that we need to learn how to do. Then we have a plant-based food demo. I do a session on the gut. I also do the goals session. Then we have a session on how to actually eliminate environmental toxins. We have a yoga instructor. We have mindfulness and meditation. We do chakras. We do gratitude. It's a full day,
thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a full day.
Lovely.
And the big intention was to keep it really affordable. So it's a very affordable day, and it is in one of the most stunning healing sanctuary properties in South Australia that has just been opened up to the public at Malaga.
Lovely.
So, yeah.
So we have come to the end of the program. So how can people connect with you?
Well, lots of different ways that you can connect. So I've actually got a Facebook page. I'm on Instagram. You can connect via email. I can share with you some of the flyers. I would love to invite any of your listeners today, if they actually want to come to the retreat. The next retreat's on the 30th, specifically for mothers, grandmothers, stepmothers. And I'd love to invite your listeners to come for 25% off. I do health coaching, one-on-one health coaching for an hour and a half. I'm quite happy to offer 30% off on that. And otherwise, I've got a private group called Live Clean Collective, which is actually, we've got about 15 to 20 health coaches. That's a free group if anyone wants to connect in that as well, Bianca.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming in.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Yes.
Topics like the past. I got searched in the days of Dazzleland at Mine Centre. Do you remember?
Oh, good.
Do you remember how long ago that was? I must have looked dodgy then as well. To current events.